Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are doing the 6th video in my Origin build lineup, that being the most requested and by far the one that people seemed most excited for, Shadowheart. Now, a couple of things to get out of the way. Number one, stick around to the very end of this video. It is extremely important that you do so in order for this whole thing to work. You'll see what I mean when we get there, but for now, just trust me. The other thing is, thank you so much for your support on the Origin build series. They have been consistently performing really well, by far some of my best performing videos in recent times, especially the Gale and Lae'zel ones, so super thank you for your support on those. But with that out of the way, let's get into, well, not the final Origin character, but the final of the kind of party cast, I guess. You'll see what I mean. Obviously, we're going to be kicking things off as a cleric, as per the rules of the series. That is not going to change, and neither is Shadowheart's subclass. And I'll go into that go into the reasons why for a moment here. So I have been informed, and it's kind of been floating around, that if you change the base level, the base class or subclass, if the subclass can be changed at level 1, of a Origin character, you lose dialogue options. And I feel like it makes sense to keep Shadowheart as a trickery domain cleric anyway, just because it makes the most sense for her story. So we're going to be sticking with that for now. You'll see what I mean as we get on later, but I think definitely for the start of the game, you're going to want to keep Trickery Domain, and you're going to get some cool features out of this as well. Namely, you're going to get Blessing of the Trickster, granting another creature advantage on stealth checks. This works quite nicely if you pair it with my Astarion Origin build. So, you know, might as well keep it up. We also get a couple of cool things like Charm Person and Disguise Self. And Disguise Self is honestly one of the more fun spells in the game if you've never really used it for the dialogue options it can give you. It is super fun, and I recommend trying it out. As for cantrips, we're just going to keep the standard fare: Resistance, Guidance, and Sacred Flame. However, if you wanted to change things up to Produce Flame instead of Sacred Flame, or Thaumaturgy instead of Resistance, you absolutely can, but I like keeping the standard 3. And as for our ability scores, they have been a bit messed about, so let me just fix them real quick. There we go. This is kind of the stat spread I'm going for. It's probably a little bit strange, but I'll explain my reasoning as we go. Strength 16, this is going to be our main weapon attacking stat. I mean, you could probably already guess what weapons I'm going to be using in the long run for these builds, and as such, we do need strength for them. Dexterity as at 12. We are going to be wearing medium armor with this build, so we don't need it to be too high, but this is still lower than I would like, but hey-ho. Constitution at 14, because I still feel like it's a nice middle ground, and I pretty much always just set Constitution to 14 as a default, unless there's a reason to put it higher. For example, a full spellcaster build, but I feel like Constitution at 14 just works fine here. And Wisdom at 16 for obvious reasons. We're a cleric, it's our main stat, we need it as high as it'll go. As for our proficiencies, Shadowheart starts out with the Acolyte background, giving her religion and insight, and of course that only really leaves us with 3 other options: History, Medicine, and Persuasion. And since we have a ton of Persuasion-based characters in the party already, I've just decided to keep default History and Medicine, just because, why not? Might as well change it up a little bit. Next up at Cleric level 2, we are going to be getting our second Channel Divinity feature, which is Invoke Duplicity. Distract your enemies with an illusion. Within 3 meters of the illusion, attack rolls have advantage for you and your allies. Again, a perfect complement to my Astarion build, which was the last one, so really worth having, and it's cool that it summons like a clone of yourself. It does look quite neat to use in combat. What did I just do? Oh, that was weird. So yeah, both the attacker and the creature must be within 3 meters of the illusion, though that's the only caveat, but there's definitely some uses for it, so I would play around with this a bit more. As for our prepared spells, you have a few options, but let's just bring the standard cleric fare for now. Sanctuary, amazing spell. The healing spells to keep the party up. Guiding Bolt is a good option, and I would also grab Inflict Wounds, so you have different damage types as well. It's just nice to have a bit of option. At Cleric level 3, we are going to start getting level 2 spells, and from our Trickery domain we get a couple of extras that we wouldn't normally be able to get. First up is Pass Without Trace. Call forth a Veil of Shadows and Silence to give you and all nearby companions a +10 bonus to stealth checks. Super good if you just want to get through a sticky situation. I find this spell has a lot more value in Honor mode for getting past those encounters that you just really don't want to risk. Absolutely worth picking this up. And then next up is Mirror Image, one of my favourite spells. Doesn't require concentration and creates 3 illusory duplicates of yourself that distract attackers, multiplying your armor class by 3 for or I guess multiplying, yeah. It adds 3 to your armor class for each duplicate, and every time an attacker misses you, a duplicate disappears. But the fact that it does not require concentration, it's basically just a free AC boost, just for the cost of a level 2 spell slot, is super good. Highly recommend it on a lot of builds, and it's great that we just get it for free here. As for our prepared spells, the game has kind of picked out a good one for us. Spiritual Weapon is a good idea, but if you wanted to lean more into the healer route, you have a ton of things, like Aid, for example, or Hold Person if you wanted to kind of go that route. As we kind of get more levels, we'll kind of get more options. I mean, you could replace something like Inflict Wounds if you feel like you're not using it very much for Aid. You know, play around with these a lot. I mean, the thing with Cleric is it's a prepared spell list, so you can swap these out anytime, so just feel free to play around with what works for you. At level 4, we're going to take an ability score improvement, and we're going to bump up our wisdom to 18. It's our main stat that we're going to be using at the moment for both for all of our spells, so it makes sense. And you know, like if we're using like our strength-based weapon, like our mace or something, then having our strength at 16 at this point in the game isn't too bad. So just bumping up our spellcasting stat is definitely going to be more important. We also do get another cantrip at this level, and I will take Thaumaturgy. We also get another prepared spell. Take whatever you like. I'm going to grab Hold Person. At level 5, we do get some pretty important features for Cleric, namely Destroy Undead, allowing our Turn Undead ability, which I forgot to mention earlier. But you know what it does, it makes undead creatures run away. Now, those undead creatures will also take a big chunk of radiant damage, which is super nice. It's really good for those niche situations where you're up against a big wave of undead. We also get some level 3 spells, including some from our domain. We get Bestow, Curse, and Fear, which is quite nice to have. And like I say, we do get to pick some level 3 spells, and of course we're going with the 2 obvious choices, Spirit Guardians and Mass Healing Word. Spirit Guardians is still one of the most powerful spells in the game by far, allowing us to use our concentration to summon a, you know, Spirit Guardians that will surround us and deal radiant or necrotic damage to anyone who comes close. And Mass Healing Word is just a big group-wide heal, which is just going to do, you know, it's going to keep everyone alive. Again, especially valuable in honor mode. So yeah, I think overall we have a pretty good spell selection here. And finally, at Cleric level 6, we are going to get our subclass feature, which is Cloak of Shadows, allowing us to, if we're obscured, become invisible for a couple of turns. Pretty cool. Costs a Channel Divinity charge. I'm probably going to be mainly using our Channel Divinity charges on Invoke Duplicity to summon the clone, but this is still okay, I guess. We do get another Channel Divinity charge though, which is nice. And finally, we do get to prepare an extra spell at this level, which means we can take Revivify? I don't know. Take whatever you like here, it really doesn't matter. I'll just pick this for now. Now, here's where we're going to get into what makes this video a bit different. I'm going to assume that around level 6, you're going to be reaching a certain part of the game that is pretty important to this character. Now, I'm going to kind of skirt around it in this specific video for spoiler reasons, but what I'm going to say is now is that obviously from that point on in the game, so again, minor spoiler warning, but there will be bigger spoilers in a minute, so be prepared, you have a pretty big decision to make. And it's probably one of the biggest choices you can make throughout the whole game. And since it's so intrinsically tied to this character, it didn't make sense to just come up with one build that just, you know, tries to encapsulate all of it. So much like in the game itself, you need to choose. So choose.